Welcome to the Iowa Department of Education's Lau Plan webinar.
For Section 1, please take the time to download this guidance document from the Department of Justice and the Office of Civil Rights. This webinar has been developed in two separate sections for the purpose of comprehensibility. Your team may wish to schedule two separate viewing and processing times, one for each section, or you can choose to view the webinar in its entirety and complete the activities during one sitting.
As an overview to this webinar, we will be reviewing legal reminders as noted below. Lau v. Nichols from 1974, Castaneda v. Pickard, 1981, and the Joint Department of Justice and Office of Civil Rights guidance document.
Facts about Lau v. Nichols include the fact that it was a 1974 landmark civil rights decision of the Supreme Court in the United States where Chinese students filed suit versus the San Francisco Unified School District. This case was grounded in statute, that is, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. As a result, Lau remains the major precedent regarding educational rights of language minorities some 40 years later.
The finding from Lau v. Nichols is as such: there is no equality of treatment merely by providing ELL students with the same facilities, textbooks, teachers, and curriculum. For students who do not understand English are effectively foreclosed from any meaningful education. This is significant because it sets the stage for all future programming for English language learners in the United States, whereas English language learners require specialized and specific programming and instruction.
At the local level, Specialized Language Instruction Education Program, or LEAP, must focus on growth in language proficiency as well as growth in content attainment. LEAs monitor English learners for progress in both language and content growth.
While Lau v. Nichols set the stage for specialized programming, it didn't provide much guidance around what that programming needed to look like, sound like, or feel like for English language learners. Castaneda v. Pickard in 1981 followed up with some very specific guidance for what those programs needed to include. In Raymondville, Texas, the independent school district, Mexican-American children and their parents filed suit, and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, establishing the three-pronged test for specialized language instruction education programs as follows. They must be based on a sound educational theory. Those programs must be implemented effectively with adequate resources and personnel. And after a trial period, the program must be evaluated as effective in overcoming language handicaps, i.e. barriers.
The three-prong approach to evaluate adequacy of a district's program includes the following three prongs. The first, sound educational theory. The second prong, effective implementation. The third, program evaluation and modification. For the first prong, sound educational theory, it should be noted that the Office of Civil Rights does not require a particular educational approach or model. A district may select any model it can show is considered sound or is considered a legitimate experimental strategy. The second prong, effective implementation, includes staffing, resources, exit criteria, special education, and other district program inclusion.
In relationship to staffing, staff serving English learners must be highly qualified to implement the program. As of July 1, 2012, Iowa requires the ESL endorsement for teachers serving ELs. These teachers must be providing direct instruction, not only consulting for such services, until a student reaches proficiency and formally exits the program.
Resources for the second prong. Districts must provide adequate resources determined by the timely availability of required equipment and instructional material.
In relationship to the exit criteria, ELs should continue to receive language instruction education program services until they meet the following exit criteria. First and foremost, they must achieve a required proficiency score on ELPA 21. They must score proficient on district-wide and or statewide assessments in reading and math. Use the state-required accountability assessment if available, and use district-wide assessments if the student is in a grade not tested by the state content assessment. Additionally, students must meet both of the above criteria in the same academic year in order to qualify for exiting.
Districts ensure that students are not placed in special education solely due to a language barrier. Districts also ensure that evaluations accurately reflect a student's special education needs rather than a lack of English language proficiency. Further related to the second prong, in special education and other programs, English learners are provided with opportunities to participate equitably in all other district programs. This means to the same extent as non-ELs.
The third prong is relative to program evaluation. Districts must annually evaluate their LEAP program to ensure they are effective and modify as indicated by data. In order to do this, districts must consider their own program goals to determine if the LEAP is effective, and the evaluation process must be part of the Lau Plan.
Joint Office of Civil Rights and Department of Justice Guidance. What do you know about the Dear Colleague letter issued on January 7, 2015 and sent to all public school superintendents across the United States? What does that letter mean? Both the Office of Civil Rights and the Department of Justice are very active currently. The Department of Education receives calls regularly asking for information on policies and procedures related to all aspects of civil rights issues for language minority students. This important letter serves as a reminder to districts to pay close attention to the current state of compliance at both SEA and LEA levels.
The Office of Civil Rights issues guidance regarding the communication requirements for language instruction education programs. These requirements are as follows. Districts are required to notify parents of the programming annually for their English language learner students. Districts are also required to have an adequate provision for oral or written communication in the language best understood by parents.
Now beginning Section 2 of the webinar. This webinar has been developed in two separate sections for the purpose of comprehensibility. Section 1 was devoted to the legal foundation of Lau planning. Section 2 is devoted to technical assistance in the development of a quality Lau plan.
In order to prepare for this section of the webinar, please pause the webinar and download copies of the following documents from the Iowa Department of Education's website, as noted below. You'll need the Lau Plan template and the Lau Plan checklist.
An overview, what we will be discussing for implementing a Lau plan. Components of the Lau plan, state responsibilities, AEA responsibilities, and local responsibilities, support, and resources.
There are 9 components of the Lau Plan.
Note that the 9 components are listed in a Roman numeral format. Successful Lau plans mirror the exact formatting involving Roman numerals and lettering that appear on the screen. Roman numeral 1, Lau Plan goals. A through C address goals for English language development, academic achievement, and new for 2015-16, cross-cultural goals. Roman numeral 2 addresses the identification and placement of English learners in a language instruction education program, or LEAP. Letters A through D include the Home Language Survey, the Iowa form located on the Transact website, available to all school districts in Iowa, the state-approved English language proficiency placement assessment, process to place the student in the appropriate LEAP, and parental forms being distributed in a language most easily understood, found on Transact, including determination of student eligibility, which is sent to parents once upon initial placement, and also the notification of English language development program placement both initially and annually thereafter.
Roman numeral number 3 includes the description of the LEAP. A through F as follows. First and foremost, outline the LIEP goals. Districts will then describe the specific state-approved LEAP model or models used by the district and the process that they use to place students in such programming. See Appendix B for a full list and description of the following 5 program types. 1. The newcomer program. 2. Sheltered instruction. 3. English as a second language programming. 4. Dual language program. Or 5. Other bilingual program. C. The annual parent notification and procedure for waiving services must be described by the district. Next, the highly qualified staff with ESL endorsements. followed by a designated administrator who's overseeing the language instruction education program. And last, the districts guarantee that students will have access to both Iowa core standards and English language proficiency standards to ensure that they are progressing in the development of English and content.
Roman numeral 4. The process to provide meaningful access to all co-curricular and extracurricular programs. A through C include process in place for identifying and serving gifted, talented ELs, in particular how it might differ from identifying non-ELs for placement in such programming. Process in place for identifying and serving ELs in special education. A process in place for identifying and serving ELs in any and all other district programs, including Title III, Reading Recovery, at-risk programs, career and technical programs, counseling services, advanced placement, international baccalaureate courses, performing and visual arts, athletics, clubs, honor societies, etc. Roman numeral 5 includes the provision of ongoing embedded English learner professional development for staff who support English learners, in particular the general education staff as well as the ESL staff, including district and building administrators, LEAP staff, both certified and support staff, content and classroom teachers, paraprofessionals, building and district support staff, including instructional coaches, curriculum coordinators, counselors, etc.
Roman numeral number 6. The Annual English Language Proficiency Assessment and Administration, ALPA 21. A through D includes a description of the annual training to appropriate staff, dissemination of scores to stakeholders, a description of the appropriate training to interpret results for staff, and a description of how the district will utilize the assessment results to guide instruction and programming.
Roman numeral 7 is the LEAP exit criteria and procedures in place. New criteria for 2015-16 academic year and future academic years are the following. First, achieve the required score on the ALPA 21. Also, score proficient on district-wide and or statewide assessments in reading and math. As a note, use the state-required accountability content assessments if available. Use district-wide assessments if the student is in a grade not tested by the state content assessments. And finally, meet both of the above criteria in the same academic year. Procedures for exiting include the following, 1 through 3. Notify parents with the state-approved Transact exiting form in the language most understandable to parents and families. Second, change the student coding to exited so the student does not continue to generate unwarranted funding. District data personnel responsible for entering data should refer to the Iowa Department of Education's Data Dictionary for further information. And finally, begin the required district 2-year monitoring process of exited ELs.
Roman numeral number 8. Monitoring procedures after students exit the LIEP program. Districts must describe the 2-year monitoring procedures in place after students exit the program. Monitoring procedures need to include criteria to determine EL's sustained academic progress. A certified licensed professional must be responsible for the monitoring procedure, identified by name and position as well as folder number in the Student Reporting Information System. Districts must also describe the re-entry process, including parental notification when appropriate for students who are struggling and require additional LIEP services. Roman numeral number 9 describes the LEAP evaluation. Districts must describe the annual LEAP evaluation process, which includes evidence regarding progress toward meeting the Lau Plan goals in both English language development and academic achievement. This evaluation process may be based on increasing the percentage of ELs making growth in language acquisition as measured by ALPA 21, which is Annual Measurable Achievement Objective Number 1, AMAO 1. It may also be based on increasing the percentage of ELs attaining or reaching full proficiency as measured by ALPA 21, which is AMAO 2. The evaluation may also be based on making adequate yearly progress or AYP in reading and or math as measured by the state-approved content assessments according to targets established by Title I, and this is AMAO 3. It may also be based on other district-determined data.
State responsibilities include the following. First, develop the required Lau Plan materials, such as the checklist and the Lau Plan template. Develop the technical assistance webinar. Implement the Lau Plan review and approval process. And finally, monitor LEA compliance in Lau planning.
Area Education Agency responsibilities include the review of all LEA Lau plans and providing technical support and feedback to LEAs in the development and implementation of Lau plans.
Local responsibilities include to implement the plan, evaluate their plan, update the plan annually, make sure necessary staff are aware of the plan, including administrators, curriculum directors, teachers, superintendents, and provide necessary resources so that staff can implement the plan effectively. Questions regarding Lau plans should be directed to your district's AEA Title III consultant.
Additional resources can be found at the Iowa Department of Education's ELL website, as noted below. To recap, from this webinar, you should now understand the legal foundation that grounds Lau planning and the components required for the development of a high-quality Lau plan. Thank you for your time and attention to this very important topic.